In your vision notes or in your Unit 4 packet, go ahead and turn to your vision notes and we'll go ahead and get started. So we're mostly going to be talking about the eye in these notes, very obviously, but you need to know each of the different parts of the eye labeled here. So go ahead and label your eye with not only the word of each thing, but what it does. So let's start from the outside and work our way in. So the very outer layer of your eye, so if you put contacts in or if you were to touch your eye, you would be touching your cornea. This is the outer clear layer on your eye. It's transparent, outer covering of your eye, and it's simply a protection. Now, light is what allows us to see. So it goes through the transparent cornea. It is clear, allowing the light in. And it goes through a hole in our eye. We essentially have a hole in our eye. So thank goodness for that cornea to cover up the hole. That hole is called the pupil. So it's what allows light in. The hole, the pupil, is controlled by the iris. The iris is the muscle controlling the pupil. So as the iris contracts, it makes our pupil smaller. As it expands, it makes our pupil bigger. This is also the colored part of your eye. So if you have brown eyes, you have a brown muscle in your eye. Once it goes through the pupil, controlled by the iris, it hits the lens, which essentially looks like a contact lens. It focuses onto the very back inside of your eye, which is the retina. So the retina being this back layer of your eye here, it contains our visual sensory receptors. This is where our sensory receptors lie. Now, this little bump out on our retina is actually called the fovea. Think of it as fovea focus. It's the point of central focus. So it contains most of the eye's cones, and we're going to talk about what cones are in a bit. So if you're looking at this screen right now, at me or at this PowerPoint on your screen right now, that's what you're focused on. You can see the color. It's very focused. You can see it very well. Now, don't look at it, but pay attention to everything else that's in your periphery. You can't see the color as well. No, and it's also very kind of fuzzy. That's because it's not in your fovea. Then finally, we have this back here. Big thing is the optic nerve. And the optic nerve is what takes everything back to the brain, to the thalamus and the visual cortex. Because of this, we have a little blind spot. It's where our optic nerve leaves the eye, and there are no receptors there. So let's talk about how we see, the stimulus that allows us to see. There's hue and wavelength. Hue is color, and yes, you need to know this. Hue is color. The dimension of color is determined by wavelength of light. So very short waves, very short and condensed waves, they have a high frequency that allows for a bluish color. Wavelength is the distance from the peak of one wave to the peak of the next. So if you have a long wavelength, it equals low frequency that allows for reddish colors. So hue is determined by wavelength. And this is just shows you the units of short wavelengths, the shortest being purple, all the way up to red. So different wavelengths of light result in different colors. Intensity and brightness. Intensity is the amount of energy in a wave determined by amplitude. This is related to perceived brightness. So great amplitude, meaning how tall they are, great amplitude is brighter colors. So the taller blue is, or any color for that matter, the brighter it is. The smaller is the duller the color. And of course, showing you the intensity or the brightness, and that these are very short and these are very, very high. Blue color with varying levels of intensity. So as intensity increases or decreases, blue color looks more washed out or darkened. So let's talk about each part of the eye. The lens. You do need to know about myopia and hyperopia, nearsightedness and farsightedness. So nearsightedness is a condition in which nearby objects are seen. So if someone is nearsighted, they can see things that are near to them. They cannot see things far away. The reason for this is because the eye is elongated. It's not a perfect circle. It's actually quite long. It's kind of an oval, and the image focuses before it hits the retina. So it focuses here rather than on the retina. Farsightedness, meaning people can see things far away but not close up. The reason why is because their eye is shortened. Okay, it kind of looks like a football up on its side. So because the eye is shortened, the image would focus after the retina if it could focus back there. So it's very blurry when it hits the retina. Let's talk more specifically about the retina. So this light-sensitive inner surface of the eye is the retina. It contains rods and cones plus layers of other neurons, bipolar and ganglion cells that process visual information. You do need to take some extensive notes here. So be ready to pause in order to read everything that's on the screen, rewind, listen to what I'm saying, write that down. So number one, the light enters the eye and it triggers photochemical reactions in rods and cones at the back of the retina. So when light goes through your eye and through your retina, it actually goes all the way to the back and it stimulates the rods and the cones. The yellow items are the cones, the blue are the rods. Notice that there are more rods than cones, and we're going to talk about what each of those do. The chemical reaction in turn activates the bipolar cells. Okay, so all our rods and cones link up to bipolar cells here in the middle. And then bipolar cells then activate the ganglion cells. And the axons of ganglion cells all converge. They all come together. Notice how they all come out here. And they converge way back here to create the optic nerve. So this nerve then transmits information to the visual cortex and the occipital lobe.